Thank you very much, Fouzia, for this kind introduction. So, as Fouzia said, I am Élise Degnaud, and I am maître de conférence, associate professor in the University of Pau. And today I will present you work regarding self-assembly of amphiphilic block copolymers in aqueous medium and also waterborne dispersion of polymer colloids. Alors, ça marchait tout à l'heure et là, ça ne marche plus. Ici? Ouais, c'est bon. Thank you. So for those who don't know Pau, so Pau is located at the very southwest of France, so near the Pyrenees and near the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a very pleasant city to work. And also here you can visit the castle where Henry IV was born. So a very interesting city. And in this city, so the IPREN Institute is an institute for analytical science and physical chemistry for environment and materials. It is composed of about 100 permanent staff and about the same as non-permanent. And in IPRIM, we are interested in fundamental knowledge in physical chemistry of surfaces and polymer materials, chemistry, microbiology of environment, and also theoretical analytical chemistry for application in environment and energy. So within IPRIM, I focus on four main research topics, which are stimulus-responsive self-assembly of amphiphilic block copolymer in water, elaboration of micro and nanogels, waterborne of conjugated polymer colloids for the organic photovoltaics, and also on micro and nanoplastics. And I am currently doing a CNRS delegation in Le Mans at the Institute of Molecule and Materials of Le Mans, IMMM, where I develop three topics, also on self-assembly of amphiphilic block copolymer as a bottle brush together with Christophe Chassenieux, production of model microplastic and study of their degradation modes with Fabienne Lagarde, and the elaboration of COF colloid for CO2 capture together with Karim Adil. And all of the applications that we are interested in, again, are environment and energy. Covalent organic frameworks. So I won't show you this part today, but we can discuss later on if you are interested, of course. And today I wanted to focus my presentation on three thematics. The first one on the self-assembly of amphiphilic block copolymers in water and showing a pH and thermo-responsive system of dynamic aggregates, also using an interesting trigger that is the carbon dioxide, forming not also spherical, but also worm-like Mall cells at equilibrium. And another part will focus on the elaboration of colloid dispersions with application in environment first and in energy as a second part. So this is the overview of my presentation, and I will start with the self-assembly of amphiphilic block copolymer in aqueous medium. So amphiphilic diblock copolymer presented here in left are composed of a hydrophobic block in red and a hydrophilic one in blue. And when they self-assemble in water, they form a broad range of morphology from micelle to vesicle and rod, depending on the volumic fraction of the hydrophobic block. And what is interesting with this system is when you can tune the self-assembly with a different stimulus, depending on the chemical nature of the polymer units. And what we know since the PhD that I did in Le Mans with Christophe is to form a dynamic system, dynamic micelle, meaning that there is a reorganization between the micelle via exchange of single unimer chain, is that an interesting way is to incorporate hydrophilic units in the hydrophobic block in order to decrease the surface tension between both blocks, and thus forming reorganization of the micelle. So in this context, the first work I wanted to present is a pH and thermoresponsive system forming of copolymer with styrene as hydrophobic units and dimethylaminoethyl acrylate as hydrophilic one, which can be protonated upon the addition of acid and whose homopolymer can also be stimulated by the temperature with LCST ranging between 35 degrees and 50 degrees, depending on the molecular weight of the polymer. So what is very important in this area is that the control of the chemical structure and composition of the polymer is highly important because it will influence the self-assembly and physicochemical property in solution. So that's why we always use a control radical polymerization to design our copolymer, and in this case it was nitroxide mediated polymerization, and we could synthesize well-defined block copolymer with narrow molecular weight distribution. And we study the microstructure inside the hydrophobic block, which is a copolymer of more styrene at the beginning and more dimethylaminoethyl acrylate at the end of the block copolymer by the determination of the reactivity ratio of both units. So then we study the self-assembly of this copolymer in water, and we first show that there is aggregation to disaggregation system, which is tuned by the pH, by the addition of an acid. So here it represents the ionization degree of the dimethylaminoethyl acrylate, the amine units, and which is an on-off system, which is quite an on-off system, depending on the alpha. And what is very important is that it's completely reversible when you increase the ionization degree. So this, OK. Je ne sais pas ce qui s'est passé. OK. Peut-être je remets PowerPoint ou je passe en PDF? Non, j'ai pas des animations, mais ouais, je l'ouvre en fait, il s'était éteint. Bon, je tente et puis si ça reprend, je mettrai en PDF. Okay. So then we study this self-organization under the pH stimuli, also using neutron scattering. And this neutron scattering confirmed the light scattering result with scattering intensity, which decreases when the ionization degree of the monomer units increase. And you can see also that the shift of the peak is shifted towards higher Q value, meaning that the aggregate, the size of the aggregate decreased as well. So we could quantify the science result by performing a model of form factor of polydispersed sphere and a structure factor of a percussivic to get aggregation number and co-radius of the aggregate. And we get aggregation disaggregation behavior like what we got in light scattering with critical range of ionization degree alpha between 0.2 and 0.5. So then we took an alpha, intermediate alpha in critical, which is 35%, and we study the influence of the temperature on the size of the aggregate. And again, by neutron scattering, we could see that by increasing the temperature, the size of the aggregates increase with the increasing of scattering intensity, as well as a shift towards low Q value of the peak of the SANS. And with the model applied, we could also plot the aggregation number and core radius versus the temperature to see that there is an increase with increasing temperature. However, we could see that the influence of the temperature is weak compared to the pH, as it needs a very high variation of temperature to get a small effect in ionization degree. So then we develop, together with the PhD of Aurélie Lespès, another pH and thermoresponsive system. And this was in collaboration with Maud Save and Laurent Billon in Pau and Yu Zhao in Sherbrooke University. And in this case, hydrophilic units in blue are the polyethylene glycol acrylate. And the hydrophobic block is composed with 3 different units: copolymerization of polyethylene glycol acrylate and polydiethylene glycol acrylate with LCST that can be tuned at about 32 degrees C, depending on the composition of these both units, and a pH sensitive unit, which is in this case the diethyl aminoethyl acrylate, which can be protonated, with the amine, which can be protonated under acidic condition, but in this case, in order to tune the pH, we use an interesting trigger, as I said, which is the carbon dioxide, because when you introduce carbon dioxide in water, it forms carbonate ion and also hydronium ion that can protonate the amine function. And this is completely reversible, either by introducing nitrogen or by increasing the temperature. So this trigger is very interesting in the case of the pH, because it avoids the accumulation of salt when you add acid or base when doing cycle. So again, we first make an effort to control the composition of this copolymer containing the hydrophilic block, and the second which is a tempered hydrophobic block, using still NMP in a one-pot synthesis, and we get a very well-defined block copolymer containing 2 different compositions of these CO2 responsive units, one with 10% and one with 50%. So then the protonation of the amine with the carbon dioxide bubbling in water was followed by NMR. And here you can see that the resonance peak, which are characteristical of the amine function in red, highlighted in red, exhibit shift towards, downfield shift, which indicate the protonation of the amine after 5 minutes of carbon dioxide bubbling. And after 5 minutes of nitrogen bubbling, the initial spectra was completely recovered, so showing the reverse of the process. And all the protonation of the amine among the carbon dioxide was also followed by titration here at the right of the slide, showing that after 5 minutes bubbling, the pH corresponds to ionization degree of 1, total ionization degree, and after 5 minutes nitrogen, the pH corresponds to the neutral form of the amine. So then we study the characteristic of the polymer in water, and first we found by dynamic light scattering measurement that the object formed at neutral ionization degrees, at alpha equals 0, form object of about 5 nanometers, whatever the composition of the CO2 responsive unit. Then after 5 minutes of bubbling carbon dioxide, the object here in red, representing in red, with the less amount of the carbon dioxide responsive units, the size of the object don't change, but with more amine units, the size decreased a bit, and we make the hypothesis that at the neutral pH, when there is when there is more dimethyl aminoethyl acrylate units, these acrylate at the neutral form are more hydrophobic, and so the copolymer hardly aggregates, whereas it disassembles completely when among the protonation of the units. But this happens only if a lot of units are incorporated. Then we increased, of course.
So this is diameter,
is hydrodynamic diameter, yes.
And comparing to the previous results, I mean, 1 nanometer diameter is very small, no?
Yeah. You mean?
I mean, before you show, I think, radius or diameter in the other part of the talk that were significantly larger. So can one really understand 1 nanometer diameter for this polymer system, or it is like collapsed?
You mean 1 nanometer? So for us, 1 nanometer is a typical size for single unimer chain in solution. And when the aggregates are formed, the size really increase up to something around 50 nanometer. So, and it was the same for the other system, also around 3 nanometer for single unimer chain, and 50 nanometer for the aggregates. So here, when we increase the temperature, so we form the aggregates, and before or after CO2 exposure, the behavior is the opposite. Before exposure, again, the amine are in the neutral form, so alpha equals 0. And then we see that when there is less amine units, the aggregates are bigger here in red, because again, for us, at the neutral stage, the amine units are more hydrophobic, so more hydrophobic units, the core is more collapsed. Whereas upon CO2 exposure, you protonate the amine units, and in this case, you form bigger aggregates with more amine units because the core is swollen by the charge of the amine units. So in general, what is interesting with this system is it's also a pH and thermoresponsive system, but in this case, the aggregation can be tuned by the bubbling time of carbon dioxide. And again, it's very interesting because you avoid the accumulation of acid and base, which will influence the aggregation behavior in solution. So the last work I wanted to show you on the self-assembly of amphibic block copolymer is a work that we developed together with Maud Savinpo and Christophe Chassenieux in Le Mans. And this time, we want to target anisotropic nanostructure at equilibrium, so dynamic. And for that, we use branch structure of the hydrophobic block in order to constrain the packing parameter of the overall polymer chain into a value that is compatible with a flat curvature, inducing worm-like micelle. So again, we make a lot of effort to synthesize in a controlled manner the bottle brush copolymer, with the first step, which is the synthesis by nitroxide mediated polymerization of the polymer backbone, consisting in a block of polyterbutyl acrylate, and a second block, which is a copolymer of terbutyl acrylate units and isobutyryl ethyl acrylate units in green, which is a bromide functionality that can be used as a macro initiator in a third step, using atom transfer radical polymerization of N-butyl acrylate units and terbutyl acrylate units in order to form the brush block. So as you see, we could synthesize well-defined bottle brush copolymer with narrow molecular weight distribution and exhibiting a Markoving-Sakurada parameter alpha, which is in accordance to a branched structure. And the amphiphilic block copolymer is obtained after a selective acidolysis of the terbutyl acrylate units in black in acrylic acid units in blue. So again, the static light scattering helps us to study the aggregation behavior of such a copolymer by observing the influence of the molecular weight on the scattering wave vector. And here what you see is that when the ionization degree decrease, the molecular weight increase and the angle dependence become more important. So meaning that there is an aggregation induced self-assembly of the bottle brush copolymer with a critical value of alpha around 35%. And we play on the chemical structure of the bottle brush by varying either the volume fraction of the hydrophobic block brush or by increasing the length of the backbone and keeping the volume fraction the same. And we could see that the disaggregation transition could be tuned by increasing the fraction, the molar fraction, sorry, of acrylic acid units. Unfortunately, if we compare the ratio between the molecular weight and the hydrodynamic radius obtained by dynamic light scattering, we could see that the formation of dense spherical aggregates. And finally, we found that by using a bottle brush with a shorter length of the first hydrophilic block and a longer backbone of the brush, but with a shorter length of the brush, the aggregation behavior here represented in this graph here could see that there is a dependence in Q-1 at a low ionization degree, which is representing off worm-like aggregates and which was confirmed by the size that we could be measured by dynamic light scattering. So still we have to go on this result to really show this worm-like aggregates using this bottle brush copolymer. So, but as a conclusion of all the part, I hope that I could convince you that this way, the idea of tempering the hydrophobic block and playing on its chemical structure is a powerful tool to tune the self-assembly of amphiphilic block copolymer in water and get a lot of different morphology architecture easily tuning with multiple triggers. So the second part of the presentation I want to show you today is the elaboration of colloid dispersion, either for the environment application and later for energy application. So this work is done together with my colleague Inpo Motsav, and we first synthesize well-defined thermoresponsive microgel with the PhD of Laura Echenozia, which are consisting of vinyl caprolactam thermoresponsive units. And we did we elaborate two kinds of system, one with a physically cross-link microgel using a hydrophobic vinyl acetate unit, and one chemically cross-linked using a classical cross-linker. What was interesting in this study is that we could characterize the structure of the microgel using SANS. And in this case, we use two different models. One model at low scattering wave vector of a sphere, which is a characteristic of the outer part of the microgel, and a Lorentzian model at a higher scattering wave vector, which give a quantitative result of mesh size and polydispersity of the gel inside the gel, which were which are found very low compared to what is reported in the literature. So indicating that the microgel are really homogeneous network. And then we got the idea to use such a vinyl caprolactam microgel to develop molecularly imprinted polymer colloid for the pre-concentration and separation of the nonyl phenol, which is a micropollutant of water and classified as endocrine disruptor. So what are molecularly imprinted polymer is the MIP are a network which is selective, is a network with a cavity which is selective to a template molecule, because the network is formed in the presence of the template molecule, represented here in green, which form selective interaction with the monomer units, mainly by H-bonding interaction. And after the removing of the template molecule, you form a cavity which are selective for this molecule. And our idea was to use our microgel of vinyl caprolactam unit, which can be in specific interaction via H-bonding with the nonyl phenol, and using a hydrophobic comonomer, and we study the influence of the hydrophobicity of the comonomer on the network. And the synthesis of this colloid MIP is very interesting because it could increase the selectivity, increase the specific surface, and decrease the detection limit of the micropollutant while using a green process, because we use a mini emulsion polymerization. So we use the mini emulsion polymerization of vinyl caprolactam and vinyl acetate. And we form very well-defined macrogels, molecularly imprinted microgel, and also non-imprinted microgel, meaning in the absence of the template molecule, in order to assess the selectivity afterwards. And what we first characterize is the size of either the colloid with the imprint, the MIP, and the colloid without the imprint, the NIP, non-imprinted. And we found that the microgel exhibit exactly the same size. And we could see on this picture that the dispersity is quite low. And then the challenge in MIP is to provide sufficient adsorption of the template molecule while enabling a specific recognition of this specific molecule. So we found that by using pure water, here 100% water, we got the higher adsorption yield. But if you check the graph below, you can see that the recognition was non-specific, because the interaction inside the NIP and the MIP is the same. And this is because in pure water, only hydrophobic interaction are involved. And so the microgel is not specific of the molecule. The higher specificity was found here for 40% of water in ethanol. But if you check that the adsorption yield is rather low. So the best compromise was found for 50% of water in ethanol, where we have sufficient adsorption and specific recognition. So then in order to increase the adsorption yield, we thought that we could vary the hydrophobicity of the comonomer, and we selected 3 different comonomers with a different octanol in water partition coefficient. First, we characterized the microgel by DLS, and we can see that the size was not influenced by the hydrophobicity of the monomer. And the inner structure that could be characterized by neutron scattering also is exactly the same as the curve exactly overlay here in this graph. And then we characterize that the best comonomer is the vinyl acetate, and it is the less hydrophobic because it allows the specific recognition using the interaction with the vinyl caprolactam. And finally, we assess the selectivity of this SMIP using isothermal calorimetry by using the nonyl phenol versus the PEC cresol and the phenol. And we could see that the binding with the nonyl phenol is the higher using nonyl phenol than the other, meaning that the aliphatic chain as well as the phenolic both are very important necessary to interact with our network. So just to conclude this part, we develop different colloid for the environment application together with my colleague Maud. And at the moment, we also develop new microgel based on biosource syntones in order to use it as a Pickering stabilizer for Pickering emulsion of oil in water together with Véronique Schmidt in the CRPP. So finally, I will show you also polymer dispersion colloid for energy application for the organic photovoltaics. So organic photovoltaics are very promising materials in solar cell development because it's flexible, semi-transparent, and low cost. So the OPV devices are composed of an active layer, which is inserted between two electrodes. So this active layer is composed of at least two semiconducting materials, one electron donor material representing in blue, and one acceptor material representing in red. So both materials are carefully selected, such as the band gap of the acceptor is deeper than the band gap of the donor, so the HOMO to LUMO distance, in order that upon absorption of incident photon, the electron undergo an electron transfer from the donor to the acceptor, from the LUMO of the donor to the LUMO of the acceptor, whereas at the donor-acceptor interface, there is a hole which is created, which is transferred to the donor. And then both materials will transport the charge inside the active layer through their respective materials, and then are getting at the respective electrode. So this active layer, it is a bulk heterojunction, such as this scheme here, of these two materials, and are mainly processed using chlorinated solvent, such as dichlorobenzene, chlorobenzene, or chloroform. So in the industry, it is accepted now to use halogen-free solvent, which are called more eco-friendly solvent, like toluene or THF, but we all know that they are still very toxic and carcinogenic solvent. So this is why there is a novel way to form the active layer by elaboration of aqueous nanoparticle dispersion of semiconducting materials. So this is the project that we are doing in the PhD of Alexandre Holmes, together with my colleague Antoine Bousquet and Christine Dagron in Pau, with a collaboration with Sylvain Chambon in Bordeaux and Nathalie Holmes at the University of Sydney. And we target nanoparticle of poly-3-exylthiophene as a donor materials, and the phenyl carbon 61 butyryl methyl as an acceptor material. And we want to characterize the morphology of the nanoparticle, also presence of the surfactant on the efficiency of the semiconducting materials at the end. So in order to form a nanoparticle of semiconducting material, we use a post-polymerization technique are well used, that are mini-emulsion technique and nanoprecipitation technique. So by mini-emulsion, the nanoparticles are formed from an emulsified droplet in water, whereas by nanoprecipitation, the polymer precipitate in the solution. In both cases, the solvent is removed by evaporation under high temperature. So what are very different is that by mini emulsion, we use two solvents that are immiscible, water and solvent. And so we have to use surfactant, whereas by nanoprecipitation, we don't use surfactant and both solvents are miscible. And this is very important because this difference make opposite limitation and advantage. While high stable of high solid content of nanoparticles are obtained using mini emulsion, the use of surfactant make this process not very friendly for the OPV application because of the insulating character of the surfactant. And also it leads to a core shell morphology, which is not suitable for OPV because you need charge transfer. Whereas by nanoprecipitation, the solid content is rather low because you don't use surfactant, but the morphology that you get by nanoprecipitation is more intermixed morphology, which is more suitable for OPV application. So that's why we use the nanoprecipitation in order to form the nanoparticle of semiconducting materials. But in order to overcome the limitation of a low solid content with the nanoprecipitation, we still decided to use a surfactant, but we decided to use the F127 surfactant, which is a plurionic with a thermoresponsive critical micelle concentration that with the one that you can remove this surfactant by using a centrifugation at low temperature. So you can remove the excess of the surfactant. So then we as I said, we use P4HT and PCBM in THF in a 1:1 weight fraction of both material. And we rapidly mix this organic solvent into water. And after the solvent displacement, the polymer precipitates. And after removal, you get the dispersion of the nanoparticle. So we first characterize our nanoparticle using dynamic light scattering. And you can see that the particles are quite monodispersed. And we check the influence of the concentration of active material on the size, and you can see that the size of the nanoparticle increases with the increasing active materials concentration, but we keep a range of about 100 nanometer nanoparticle. Then we also check the influence of the amount of surfactant, the concentration of surfactant, and we could see that the size of the nanoparticle decreases with increasing the concentration of surfactant, which is quite instinctive. But again, you can see that the shift in size is not very extraordinary. So then we could show how important is the presence of the surfactant, because in order to, so what we get is we get low concentration raw material, here around 0.5 gram per milliliter. And in order to increase the concentration of material, we use a centrifugal analysis. And when the surfactant is not present, you can see here in the left side of the slide that aggregation occurs. Whereas when the surfactant is in the dispersion, you still get stable aggregates, stable nanoparticles, sorry, of about 30 milligrams per milliliter. And here I present that we could remove the excess of surfactant by using several cycles of centrifugal dialysis device. So then we characterize the morphology of the nanoparticle by using cryo-transmission electron microscopy together with Mark. And we could see for the first time a Janus morphology of nanoparticle of semiconducting materials. And this Janus morphology was also confirmed using STXM in the Pollux beam line with Benjamin Watts. And here it was a bit difficult to characterize by STXM because the nanoparticles are rather low. However, we could see several high contrast stripes, which is in accordance more with Janus morphology than in a core shell morphology. But this shows how powerful is the cryo-TEM to show the morphology of a nanoparticle, because only we could see this Janus only using the cryo-TEM. So here you can see that the more contrast is the PCBM part, which is more dense, electronically dense than the P3HT, which appear lighter in the picture. So as a conclusion to this part, we can synthesize well-defined nanoparticle with size can be easily controlled by tuning the dispersion feature, and we see this for the first time, this Janus morphology, which is morphology very promising for OPV application. And first preliminary result on the integration in solar cells show that the efficiency could be measured, but as you can see at the moment, it's rather low. So we still have to go further in this work. So as a general conclusion, I present you here a lot of different work where the chemistry is very important to tune the physicochemical properties of different colloids in water for a lot of application. And here I presented environment and energy application. So of course, the last slide is to thank all the people who work with these different projects together with me. And of course, I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you.